It is week 11 of the NBA season. And so, for fantasy basketball leagues with the proper playoff settings, that means the fantasy basketball season is about halfway done. So, today we are going to check in on how our redraft teams are doing. How's it going, guys? This is the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Andrew. Today we are going to discuss the two publicized redraft leagues that we are in. For starters, is going to be the Angle Redraft League. It is a standard 12-team league on Yahoo. And then we are also going to discuss how we are doing in the Industry Pickup League. So this is Angle's first year being in Industry Pickup. It is a very, very awesome experience, and we're going to go into more details on that. I am joined today by the other two analysts at Angle. For starters, Mitchell, how are you today, good sir?
Pretty good. I'm excited to talk hoops this week, and we have our tea time in Costa Mesa, so let's get through it.
That's right. We got some golf to play this weekend. And Braxton, you're nestled away in North Carolina, safe from all the fires that Mitch and I are dealing with out here. How's things going for you?
Good. Apparently, we're going to be getting some snow this weekend, so very excited about that. And as always, just like Mitch, I am more than excited to talk about basketball with you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, a couple of leagues to cover today. Let's get started. So here's where things stand currently with the Angle Yahoo 12 team league. So let's go over the playoff teams right now, the top six. In first place, someone who, at least over the last 3 years, has been in first place quite often in our specific redraft league that we run each year. That's LGI Squad, our friend Nam, someone Mitch and I have been playing fantasy with in a league together since, what, Mitch, like 2017, something like that. We've been playing together with this guy
Yeah.
for a pretty long time. So
No, actually,
he
it's 2018 because my sophomore year we played. No, it was my sophomore year. Our freshman year together, we started that ESPN redraft league, and then we
Oh,
made
that's
that
right.
shift to Yahoo, and created our own private league.
Yeah,
So yeah,
rookie
it's
mistake
been
going
a
on
while.
ESPN first. Okay,
Yep.
so Nam and his well, he's also had the same team name this entire time, the LGI squad. He occupies first place with a comfortable 4 game lead. However, we have an interesting situation that second through fifth place all have a similar record, that we are all the same amount of games back from first place. So in second place, we have Richard's Rad Hospital. In third place, myself, that is Jonte's Parlays. Our friend Ralph is also within the same amount of games back. He is in fourth place. You digging in me, you digging in me is in fifth place. He is also 4 games back. And then coming in our final playoff spot, she is 5.5 games back. Is Bethany's super team. So that is where our playoff landscape looks right now. But it is still a close race all the way down to 10th place. Even 10th place is currently 3 games exactly out of a playoff spot. So seventh is Gilbert's expert team. Weiss is Nam's top-notch team. His name is Weiss, even though he's using an account. It's a whole out-of-state issue with Yahoo, so we, no need to go further into that. And then Mitch, you are sitting at ninth place. And one thing I will say to you is my team was in a very similar situation to yours, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was about 2 or 3 games out of a playoff spot. Now I'm in third place. So keep at it. I know you've been hitting the waiver wire hard. I expect your team to rise up a bit. How's that been going for you in regards to churning through waivers and trying to get some good productive bodies out there?
It's been a tough year, Andrew. The first, I believe, 4 weeks, I was second to last, and I wasn't even close to sniffing a top six seed. Um, you know, it didn't start the way I wanted to. I believe I had like two con or three consecutive 2-7 losses. So I've been really crawling my way back to the spot where I am. I traded for Embiid, so I sent Phil, our good friend Phil, Bam Adebayo since the inception of this
You
draft.
traded for Embiid, Mitch? Is that what you just said?
I did, but listen here. Ever since Embiid got healthy over the last 3 weeks, I've been 3-0. So it's been
Okay.
paying off pretty well. But right now, I have a very important matchup against the number one seed LGI squad. It's going up to be pretty close. And this is without Embiid, Suggs, and Bain so far. So if you look into the matchup specifically, if you click the details, Andrew, I'm pretty close in points, rebounds, and turnovers, maybe assists, and I still don't have Jamal Murray or James Harden playing. So this is a pivotal matchup. If I do lose those close categories, this could set me back pretty bad at the 10th spot. So yeah, tough season for me, but for you, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's been turning around a little bit. And one thing I will talk about later is there's one particular player who's been a huge help to me. He was the one I drafted in the second round. And some other specific role players too. Someone we will elaborate on in the next league, Josh Hart. It has been big for me. I drafted Steph Curry with my first pick. He's been okay, but it's mostly the picks after him, like before I got into the middle rounds where I did pretty well, which has managed to keep my team afloat. Because like I said, like 2-3 weeks ago, I was not in a playoff spot. So my team started off pretty slow too. There was a lot of injuries that I was dealing with, and I've had to hit the waiver wire hard. And the result of that could potentially come back to bite me in playoffs because, as you can see, there's a waiver budget that we have in our league. Everyone started with $200, and of the playoff teams, my budget is significantly lower. Everybody has comfortably above $100 in their budget, and I'm under $100 at 87. I've been hitting the waivers pretty hard to try to bring my team back up from the depths here. So in playoffs, that is potentially something that it could come back to bite me. But I do have number 2 waiver priority right now, and I'm planning to hold on to that for a while. So there might be something that could pay off for me down the road. But yeah, the waiver budget can come back to bite me, but it has been a better turnaround or luck wise for me lately. But like I said, second through fifth are all tied at 4 games back from first place. And then the 6th place team, Bethany, is only a game and a half back from us. So, a bad loss this week could easily set me back to potentially even out of the playoffs. Like, for example, the 7th seed is 3.5 games back from me. Right now, I am currently winning, or no, I was winning earlier. Now it's tied 4-4. So it's the 3rd place team, myself versus the 5th place team. He and I both obviously have pretty similar records here. So it's going to be a competitive matchup. We'll see how this plays out. But I'm glad to see that this league this year is a lot closer than our redraft league last year, where kind of the top 3 teams or top 2 teams really ran away with it. And the rest of us were kind of left behind to sort that out. And, last year for you and I in this league in particular, Mitch, was a rough one. So, hoping to bounce back a bit for it this year.
I was just going to say, how important is that waiver budget? Are you guys using continuous waivers? And if so, can you talk about that a little bit for somebody who may not know what that is?
Yes. So yes, we are using continuous waivers. So when you want to pick up a player, you either can bid $0 or you can bid a specific amount of money on them to ensure that they get onto your team. So there are some specific players that I put higher fab amounts on than others. For example, I actually kind of swiped these 2 guys from Mitch. I dropped like over $10 each on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Noah Clowney about a week and a half ago. I think KCP I might have gotten a little bit earlier. This was when Suggs also went down. So Orlando's plagued by injuries and KCP's usage went up a bit. And then once I grabbed Noah Clowney maybe like a few days before the Nets let go of Finney Smith. So I'm hoping for that to pay off for me too. But one thing that can happen is when we get into playoffs, obviously, especially too, once we get into the later rounds of playoffs, that's where teams are going to be more willing to drop guys that they've been holding on to all season just for the sake of streaming somebody else in to ensure they win their matchup. I mean, once you're in the playoffs with the top 6 teams, a lot of these matchups can get really close. So if I'm in the playoffs against the first place squad, LGI squad, $87 versus $156, he can outbid me on pretty much anybody that I try to go for if he wanted to. So let's say one of these teams out of necessity dropped someone really good who has a 2-game week. Let's try to think of an example that's not too extreme here. Let's say someone dropped Emmanuel quickly because he had a 2-game week or something like that in the playoffs. The team with the more waiver budget obviously has a way better chance of getting him than I do. So there's certain types of moves like that could really come back to bite me. There could be good players that hit the waiver wire because of playoff situations that all these other teams have a much better chance of outbidding me for that. So I'm choosing to spend, in season in order to inflate my ranking because I was not in a playoff spot, fairly recently. But yeah, in the playoffs, that can become pretty big, and especially too when someone's doing daily streaming. Another thing they can do is use their fab budget to outbid me on anybody they think I would want to pick up in order to stat pad specific categories for myself. So yeah, especially once playoffs rolls around, the lower waiver budget can absolutely put me at a disadvantage. It's happened to me before too in Dynasty where I didn't have enough money to get someone specific and somebody else did instead.
Andrew, and now let's shift to our individual teams. So let's start with yours first.
Okay.
So, you know, we the draft played out. We've had some surprises and we had some disappointments. And looking at your team at first glance, I see two surprises that have been pretty beneficial for your run to the playoffs. And the two that I'm identifying right now are Josh Hart and Jarrett Allen, both guys who have been very healthy this season and in terms of totals are providing top 30 value. So, can you elaborate a little bit more on those guys? And then after that, identify someone that has been a disappointment for you from the draft?
Josh Hart has been amazing. He, for compared to what he's been doing previously in his career, he has been awesome. A nightly triple double threat. I'm trying to remember exactly when I got him. It was definitely in the later rounds because obviously at the beginning of the season, nobody was expecting Josh Hart to do this. So Josh Hart typically is someone you'll get like in the last three-ish rounds of your draft as a good supportive role player. But he's definitely turned out to be much more than just a role player. He has been awesome. And Jared Allen, I think I got him in either the fourth or the fifth round. So I did that to stat
round.
pad, field goal percentage, and rebounds to complement my second round pick, which is Domas Sabonis. So that was mainly what the idea was behind it. But both of the bigs this year for Cleveland have really stepped their game up. So Allen has been an awesome source of points, rebounds, and great efficient field goal shooting for me. He has not been too bad from the line this year either. So just all around, just seeing some improvements in his game. And, Atkinson's had a very, very positive effect on many of the Cavaliers players this year. Even Dean Wade's carving out a really good role for himself within the Atkinson system. So there's been a lot of changes in Cleveland that has been beneficial. So for a biggest disappointment on this specific team, like
PG.
yeah, probably PG. So PG right now is ranked outside the top 100. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries right now for me too. So majority of this year, I've been going without PG. I think I got him either around 3 or 4. He fell a little bit, not only because he's on a more crowded roster, but also he started the year injured. Really a lot of this year for me has been these two guys we're going to talk about in our next team for industry pickup, which is Josh Hart and Austin Reeves. Both of them have really stepped up this year. They've been awesome. DeJounte Murray has been kind of business as usual. That's not been too great of a pick for me, but it's really the rest of the supporting cast. Aiton's actually been okay for me this year too. And then Steph Curry, though he's not performing exactly at the first round numbers that he normally does, he's around 30 right now. I know obviously this is Yahoo, so sometimes they either inflate or deflate rankings a little bit, but he's at least not within that top 12 range that we're very used to seeing Steph Curry at. But that's okay because one of the big surprises for me, I have never in any redraft or dynasty league owned Domantas Sabonis before. And the first year I own him is the first year he finally broke into a top 10 rank. So that's been awesome. I have very much been loving the Sabonis life so far this season, and I definitely am hoping for this one to continue. But Mitch, we can talk about your team really quickly here. I know there's obviously some guys, there are a lot of injuries that you've been dealing with specifically. Is there anybody who's been, despite injury, has been a disappointment for you, or anybody who's also been a pleasant surprise for you?
I mean, despite injury, um, I want to say Desmond Bain started off slow, but he's really been picking up the pace, putting up top 30 numbers. But in terms of overall disappointment, I have to say Julius Randle, just because he has been trending down lately. He started the season hot, averaging around 20 points per game. That number has dipped. And recently, we kind of see that trend towards kind of steering towards that Naz Reid role, eventually supplanting Julius Randle in that starting lineup. He seems to be a better fit. He's a little bit more consistent stretching the floor, and he gives a much better defensive effort for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that's what they need. They need that defensive identity that got them to the Western Conference Finals last year. But one quick shout out for someone who has been a pleasant surprise for me is OG Anunoby. I drafted OG in the seventh round at pick 83. The thing about OG, he's going to be great per game. Right now he's, I think, on the cusp of the top 50. But what sets him apart this year and what really hasn't been very consistent in recent years is his injury history. So this is the first year in, I believe, 3 years that he's been relatively healthy, and he's providing near top 25 totals for this season. So knock on wood, I hope OG keeps at it. I know he plays a lot of minutes in the Tibbs system, but he's a constant staple for me, and he's been pretty surprising leading into this season. So, yeah, I think that concludes our recap for the midseason redraft league.
Right. So now we're going to switch platforms from Yahoo over to Fantrax for the next two leagues. So the first league we are going to be covering, this is the second redraft league that we are publicly in and covering, and that's the Industry Pickup League. So this league was an auction draft league, and this league has a lot of great basketball minds. Josh Lloyd, Joel Bartolota, Mitch Casey, Roto Kyle, Alex Burns is in here. All four members of Point Made Basketball are in here. Karen Talwar, Adam King. A lot of great basketball minds are in this league. And due to that, you can see this league is pretty close. So Braxton, walk us through how's things going for the Angle team so far in Industry Pickup?
Yeah, so firstly, this league is very hard. It's very difficult. One, there's a 40 game per week cap. So that's something that we've been kind of having to deal with throughout the season. You can't just win weeks based off streaming. So I think it's not something I would do in all of my leagues, but it's definitely an interesting dynamic where, the stronger team usually does prevail because you're not just winning based on pure volume. When we drafted the team, but we did a pairing of Jokic and Wemby. It was an auction draft, so we were able to do that. And we knew going in, pairing those two, we'd have to be super diligent on the wire and we'd have to nail some picks later in the draft. And Andrew, I think we did both of those things. I don't know if you disagree with that, but we have some massive hits in the draft. You mentioned Josh Hart in your redraft. I don't know if we'd be where we are tied for first place without Josh Hart. Just because he's turned into somewhat of a mini Jokic. It's kind of unbelievable what he's doing this season. Last year he shot 43% from the field. This year he's boosted it up to 56, and it's not even like the scheme has changed. He's still playing for Tibbs. I know they've added Karl-Anthony Towns and opening up some open looks for him, but I just think it's so interesting how he's managed to increase his efficiency by that significant number. And the 3-point percentage hasn't even gone up that crazy. It's just mainly like his 2-pointers. He's just getting better looks. And by virtue of that, his points has increased. As well as some of his counting stats, his rebounds, actually all of his counting stats, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, all increased. We've seen a 4-minute increase from year to year. Josh Hart is just somebody I'm so obsessed with this year, and he's done such a great job, both in real life and helping fantasy managers who have him. Austin Reeves is another guy you mentioned who, again, I think we would be really struggling without him and his health this year, just because and I don't want to call it a stars and scrubs because our team does not have scrubs on it, but when you draft so top heavy like that, you need some rock solid guys with health like Reeves and like Josh Hart have been doing to be successful, right? Because you can't do it with just two guys. You can get about there, but you still need those supplemental guys to boost your team up in the areas on, if Wemby misses a game or if Jokic misses a game. And Andrew, you can attest to this as well. When those guys have missed games, we've been able to stay pretty competitive. Even in weeks where we've missed, there was a week, I don't know if it was week 4, week 5 or something, where Jokic and Wemby missed almost the entire week. And we only lost like 4-5 or something like that, which I think is pretty incredible just with the context of this team. There was a trade we made early in the season, Brandon Pajimski for Yves Missi. Wemby. Something coming out of the draft is we didn't have a ton of blocks to supplement Wemby. He can almost do it himself, but you kind of need some supplemental blocks to accent, especially on if he misses the game in a week or something like that. And Yves Missi was huge for us. Daniel Gafford, we just grabbed on waivers recently. I know he's hurt right now, but he's been pretty awesome this year. I know his blocks are down a little bit, but his field goal and points are up. He's averaging career highs in points. And some other guys we grabbed. We do have Ja Morant as kind of our third star, but we've something interesting, and I think this is really interesting for other Ja Morant owners as well, even in redrafts, especially in Dynasty. Is if you Scottie Pippen might be the best handcuff in fantasy basketball, period, and we have both. So with we're afforded the luxury of rostering Scottie Pippen because of that 40 games cap that I mentioned. So, if Ja is healthy, we just fully don't have to play Scottie. And if he misses games like he's been very prone to this year, we just plug Scottie in. There's not a huge drop in production between the two. And even if you don't have a games cap or something like that in your league, Scottie Pippen is still rosterable with Ja healthy, I think. And if you are a Ja Morant owner, it just doesn't get much better than that. There's not much better insurance policy than that. A couple other our team, just looking at our team here, it's just full of waiver pickups. I mean, All-Star Thompson, Ayo Dosunmu, who else we got here? Tumani Kamara, which is somebody I really like. Grady Dick is also a waiver pickup. Just Santi Aldama is also a waiver pickup. I mean, we needed to be diligent on the wire, and I think we did a great job at it. Andrew, is there anything you want to add?
You're totally right. We needed to be diligent because it's not as simple as, oh, we got Jokic and Wemby and the rest will figure itself out. Because we did take a top-heavy approach due to the auction draft where we spent a ton of money early to get Jokic and Wemby and then had to be very selective and careful in building out the rest of our team after that. And we took a three-pronged approach. It wasn't just nailing the draft or nailing free agency or getting a trade done. We've found success in all three areas. And so, like, for the original members of this team that were drafted, there's about 8 remaining. So Tyus Jones, Austin Reeves, Josh Hart, Wemby, Valanciunas, Naz Reid, Jokic, Ja Morant. Those are the players that we actually drafted. Everybody else was added through the waivers, and then we traded to receive Yves Missi, which in my opinion, I would do that trade 1,000 times over, especially for this team specifically, which has rebounds, blocks, and high field goal percentage in its build. Missi has been awesome for us. So, across the board, we've had to put in work in all three areas, drafting, waivers, and trading to really shape this team out for us. And it looks like, so far it's paying off. We are technically tied for first, but I can see why Kingy is still in first place because he did beat us in week 1. So he does own, like a tiebreaker over us. But this league's very close. It was not last week, but the week before. Braxton and I went to bed with a 5-3-1 win. So, and then the next morning it changed to a 5-4 win. So it took a half game away from us. So we would be a half game in first place right now. And seeing how close it is, the number 7 team is only 3.5 games back from us and from first place. So it could easily come out to be that half a game really does matter for us at the end of the day once this season does come to an end here, just because of how close this league has been. And I couldn't agree with you more. This league's tough. It's one of the tougher leagues we've been in, not just because of the games cap rule, but also because of just how on it these managers are with picking up guys who are going to be good. Like, for example, like there are some specific guys that we wanted to get. Oh, let's check out, Malik Monk's going off right now. Grab him. Josh Lloyd already has him. So, things like that have been happening to us all year. These guys are really on top of their game. They're grabbing, the best waiver players as soon as they become available. So we've had to scratch and claw every step of the way to keep our team relevant and to get it to the place that it's in. So, it's a lot of work, but it is absolutely well worth it, especially this being our debut season within industry pickup. I definitely like where things have been going for us so far. Braxton, would you label anybody as a specific hero to our team, maybe outside of Wemby and Jokic, since they're obviously cheat codes?
I mean, definitely Josh Hart. We've harped on him enough in this, not harped on him, but we've, praised him enough in this discussion so far. I just really don't think we'd be where we are without him. I think he's incredibly important to the build. He's got pretty much zero weaknesses. That field goal on pretty decent volume. I think he's taking 14 shots per game or something now, which is pretty insane. Actually, that might not be accurate, but it's still 56% on the volume. He's taking it with the threes, with the high free throw percentage. I mean, all of it is just so awesome. And he's got really nice eligibility too. Shooting guard, small forward, power forward. So definitely an MVP for me. And one more quick point just on the difficulty, the level of difficulty in this league, the audacity by Kingy to attempt a 4-category punt. It just kind of shows, and not just attempts, but he's currently in first place. Just kind of shows how skilled some of the managers in this league are. It's incredibly difficult to punt 4 categories on purpose and be successful at it, and he's doing a very good job at this point. So, he's definitely going to be a tough matchup in the playoffs if we see him. I think I just wanted to point that out. I think it's so interesting.
No, you're definitely right. I mean, there's only, I think we have maybe 3 losses, but the 2 main losses I can think of is we lost to Kingy in week 1, and we lost to Josh Lloyd as well too, both of which are going to be extremely tough matchups for us in playoffs. But Kingy, especially because we have the Wemby Jokic team, we have blocks and rebounds in our build, and he is specialized to a big man build. We have his team pulled up right here. Multiple centers on this team: Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Mark Williams, Rudy Gobert, and Walker Kessler, all on the same team. He's got J-Dub, who you can play in every single position besides point guard, and then he's got the steals god, Dyson Daniels, too. So he's got defense well covered, and is really good at categories that we're also good at. So, Kingy is definitely one for us to worry about, and that's why he's in first place right now. He owns a win over us, and he, I don't know if he has lost so far this year. He might just have been stringing together a bunch of 5-4 wins because he is punting 4 categories, but at the end of the day, it's working out for him. And to be able to pull that off in a league with the type of people that are in it is super impressive, because we see people try to pull off the 4-category punt all the time and can't get it to work. But he got it to work right away. Week 1, moving forward, he was in full-blown 4-cat punt, working very successfully for him. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a scary matchup for us if we do run into him in playoffs. Hopefully someone beats him for us. Season. But comment down below. Let us know how your fantasy team is going so far this season. Let us know what you think about our teams, how our seasons have been going, and let us know how you think our odds are of winning industry pickup. It's our first year there, and it's a league that we are very, very hungry to win, considering the stakes involved and considering that, our own platform is fairly new to the fantasy basketball landscape. So coming into industry pickup year 1 and making some noise, it's gonna go a really long way for us here at Angle. So like this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and we'll see you guys next time.
Captain, always gotta look for him. Beat so tight, I almost put a hook on it. Verse so fire, almost put a cook on it. Had this shit jumping, looking like I put a foot on it. Got 100 on the dash when I book Sonic. Only game that I play, got a rook on it. Got a flow so hard that it looks out of y'all be cynical.